Hi friends, in this discussion we are going to discuss the almost an integral or a very critical part of the process of communication, where we are going to understand X and Y and how they are communicating. So when we have so far been looking at communication as a two-way process, where we realize X is the sender and Y is the receiver, right? But we have never really gone into the details of the sender and receiver. So this critical discussion in the paradigm of communication is when we try to understand the sender and the receiver. Well, the first question is, who is the sender? In the previous videos, we have realized that the sender is the communicator who initiates or who begins the process of communication. How does the sender initiates? Because sender is the individual who feels a need to communicate. It's not Y who feels the need. It is the individual who feels the need to communicate who becomes the sender X. Now, what we are going to understand is, what is this need? Well, again, it is almost an universal agreement that no normal and fit human being will ever communicate without feeling a need. So this is the trigger. This need is the trigger. This is what that triggers the process of communication. Need. What is a need? Sender, I told you, is an individual. Okay, so we in social sciences, an individual under study is called the ego. So the ego feels a need. So what is this need? This need can be of many types. Number one, it could be a simple need. Example, the ego is thirsty and wants a glass of water. Very simple. So, opposite to simple would be a complex need. What is a complex need? This ego has a small budget, but he wants to build a home. So he has to explain to an architect what he really wants in that small budget. His money is limited, his time is limited because he wants to shift immediately, but he has a very special desire to build a dream house. So this dream has to be communicated to Y, and Y may not understand. For instance, X could want a temple in his house, and every religion has unique ways of worship. Now Y may not belong to X's religion, and Y may find it very difficult or to understand this ego's specific requirements in his altar or in his temple. So communicating the dream house to an architect, X may find it very complex and difficult. So this is a complex need. Third, the ego's need could be personal. Remember, communication, personal, and it could be formal, informal. So when you are interacting with people who are related to its personal communication, here the need is personal. That means the ego as a private and personal being feels a need. It is not a professional need. Like, say for instance, ego wants to invite Y to his daughter's birthday, personal need. Whereas ego as a principal invites Y to the college function, professional need. So here we feel the need can be personal, 4, need can be professional. Ego wants to make a PPT, a very personal need. He wants to make a PPT of his own home and show it to his colleagues. What has he done? How did he get it done? How did he get the loan? How did he find the architect? So on and so forth. And so it is his personal need. Professional need, ego has to make a PPT to his senior to tell the senior what he or she has done in the past 1 year, a progress report in his report of his department. It's a professional need. Similarly, the ego may feel a need which is internal. How? For instance, remember in the simple need, the ego was thirsty and wanted to ask for a glass of water. This thirst is an internal thing. It happens within the ego. Naturally, the ego felt thirsty, so it was an internal need. For instance, there's a movie showing in the theaters and the ego feels a need to watch the movie because ego is a fan of the actor. So it's ego's internal need to watch the film, go to the theater and watch the film. But in the 6th instance, it is an imposed external need, or this may be looked upon as an imposed need. Well, if the external need is looked upon to be the imposed need, the internal need may be looked upon as a spontaneous need. Right? So we realize that us ego or an individual will become the sender of the process of any communication only then when the sender feels a need to communicate. And what is this need? This need can be a simple need in the ego. It could be a complex need. I've just explained the simple need could be the ego is thirsty and is looking for a glass of water. The complex need could be explaining his dream house to the architect, going to say a foreign embassy and explaining the need to migrate and asking for a visa. Why does the ego want to emigrate to, say, America, where he has his homes, his family staying in India? Complex process. It could be a personal need. The ego needs to invite Y for his daughter's birthday. The ego needs to invite Y to come to his drawing room to celebrate his wife's promotion. Personal need. Professional need, you all know that in an office, in your schools and colleges, you are asked to do something, for the school, for the organized. It's nothing personal, it is official. The ego may feel a professional need to communicate. Similarly, the need could be internal or spontaneous. Ego was thirsty, he really felt thirsty. But external need, the same ego wants a glass of water because, say, in today's context, everybody suggests that keep drinking a lot of water so to avoid the COVID infection. So ego was not really thirsty, but he heard doctors say that we should all have a lot of hot water through the day to avoid getting infected. So it was an external need. Ego, somebody told, so it was imposed on ego. Say for instance, you're watching this video, you are the receiver, right? So you're watching this video and don't take it as a video, you are watching it because you really want to know about communication, a personal need. But you're watching this video because your teacher has told you, please go and watch this channel and watch these videos. It has been imposed on you. Sometimes you go to the class and you sit there because you enjoy some teacher's teaching, spontaneous. Otherwise, you know that the 75% attendance is a requirement, so it is imposed on you. It's an external need. So what I'm trying to tell you in this discussion now, that the sender is an ego who feels a need to communicate, and only then the sender will communicate. That means without a need, no ego will become a sender. This is need driven. So communication is always a need driven process. That means communication is always a need driven process. That means egos or individuals will only communicate when they feel a need to communicate. A simple example is when you see a madman, a person who's normal and you know the person is mad. A simple example is a person who's not normal and mentally challenged. I should not really be using the word mad. Is mentally not sound, is mentally not healthy. The person will be communicating, talking to people without any need or rhyme or reason. So madness, quote unquote, or mental ill health is often indicated by a behavior of a person who communicates or apparently is trying to talk to someone, to no one, but the person keeps on talking, some blabbering, keeps on writing to people who are not around him, and there may not be a need, something that we don't understand. But a normal person will only communicate when there is a need. Now you may be saying, why should X? There are times when you want to talk to your friends just for the sake of talking. So where is the need? The need is you just want to talk. This wanting to talk to your friend, even when there is no apparent need, it is different from being mad. You really want to talk because you are tired, you are bored, and you want to come out of that phase. The phase of stress, the phase of boredom, the phase of, oh, what am I to do now? So you want to talk to a friend and feel better. So this want is the need. So apparently you will realize, if you look at yourself, each one of you who's watching this video, you will realize that you will only communicate when you are in need to communicate. Otherwise, you will never even open your lips, you'll never open your mouth, you'll never pick up your pen, you'll never pick up a book till you feel the need to communicate, right? So communication is a need-driven process. So in this process, we realize who is this ego who feels a need and then he starts communicating. So this ego X, if you plant him here and draw this diagram, this is a typical universal, I told you, non-verbal sign to indicate or represent man or a human being, isn't it? So universally, wherever you go, you see this diagram and you know it refers to a man or the human being. So supposing you draw this universally recognized image or representation of a man and you place him on a graph. So this will be the x-axis and this will be the y-axis. Now this y-axis, what you get to see here, this round thing is a mind, or the head rather. This is the head of the person, the head which carries a face, and this remaining part is the body. So together the head and the body makes this human being. This is how you see. Supposing this person is, let's call him Anne. Anne is a name of a girl. So Anne, when you see Anne and we are representing Anne, this is the head which carries the face. What you see, remember in the non-verbal communication we said Y is looking at X. So this Y looks at the head of Anne, which also carries the face of Anne, and what Anne, her whole body, right? The tip of her toe, the whole body. So this is the y-axis. Now let us take this head, okay? So here I'll keep this diagram and we are talking about the head. So what does Anne's head consist of? Anne's head consists of the brain. This is a physical part which can be mapped, which can be understood, it's very tangible, right? You can be touched. It's a tangible, it's an anatomy tangible part of Anne's body, like you can touch Anne's nose, eyes, ears. Brain is an internal organ, very much studied, very much understood by the medical sciences. So the head of every individual will have the brain, and it will also have the mind of the ego. In this case we were discussing Anna. It could be anybody, ego X. So what does the mind? Is the mind, can you touch somebody's mind like you can touch somebody's brain? No. The mind is intangible part of any human being's existence. So what is the mind consists of? So you have the brain and the mind. The mind of the ego will consist of thoughts, what he or she thinks, immediate thoughts, like I'm not thinking of an ice cream because I'm supposed to have an ice cream, but ice cream may not be part of my thought process. So we have the thoughts and the thought process. What is the difference? Thoughts could be episodic. Like currently I just told you I was thinking of an ice cream. I could be thinking of raindrops. I could be thinking of snow. Independent units, episodes of thoughts that's going through my mind. But they are not a process. What is my thought process? My thought process is a pattern of thinking. What is this pattern of thinking? Like I could be a very positive person. I could be a very negative person. I could be very ambitious. I could be very spiritual. And so on, so forth. So there's a pattern of my thought process. Like if I'm a very positive person and like in the COVID situation, people are saying you should avoid ice creams. I don't know how wrong or right they are. So if I'm very positive, I could say, doesn't matter, it's just a matter of month or two. I can be having ice creams once this pandemic is over. Very positive. But supposing I'm a negative person, I could be saying, oh my God, look at life, look at God, how I'm being punished. Why can't I have even a little thing like an ice cream? And I keep cursing people around me. So my thought process is positive. Every little thing, the thought of an ice cream could invoke a positive process a positive pattern of thinking, a negative pattern of thinking, an ambitious pattern of thinking, a spiritual pattern of thinking. So you have thoughts, your mind, everybody's minds have thoughts, they have thought processes, they have memory, right? Each one of us have our own share of memories. You could be having brothers and sisters, but believe me, once you grow up, say even beyond 10 years, the siblings will remember different things. There could be a lot of things which you remember that your brothers and sisters don't remember, or for that matter, what your brother or sister remembers, you don't. So each one of us, every ego, and for this matter, or for that matter, any ego will have thought processes, memory, then experiences. We all have experiences. First day in school, the experience of writing an exam, the experience of appearing for an interview, the experience of going to a restaurant, the experience of going to a five-star restaurant or a five-star hotel, the experience of traveling in a train, the experience of traveling in a, say, plane, in a ship. So we all have experiences. And where do you think we keep our experiences? Our experiences often remain as memory in our minds, isn't it? So it is our experiences, our memories, our thoughts, our thought processes, and then we also have our world view. This is a very important. What is a world view? It is our philosophy or an approach towards life. So mind has a lot. This is just little teasers. It is much more. It is so immense that it is a universe by itself. So each one of us, whether we are a male or a female, whether you are young or old, whether we are rich or poor, each one of us have lots of memories and all the thoughts, thought processes, memories, etc. in us. Apart from this, thoughts and experiences, we also have emotions in our mind. You feel love, you feel anger, you feel jealousy. So each one of us have emotions in our mind. We also, and our brain also is capable of something called intelligence, and it can be measured. There's a quotient. So intelligent quotient measures how intelligent or how stupid we are. So we have emotions, we have intelligence, we have something called instincts, and we have something called drives, right? So this is again one set of elements that we find in our minds. Then another set of factors is our conscious mind, our unconscious mind, and our subconscious mind. This is again the tip of the iceberg. The unconscious is a huge repository of our thoughts and experiences. This is where all our experiences, are kept. And the subconscious is the connection between the two. So basically, our mind, you see, is a storehouse of all that happens to us as we live every day of our life and we prepare for the next day. So every new day, we are carrying over the experiences of our past days and we start meeting the new day with this reference. So Anne's head has her brain, which is a tangible part. It makes her, and with which the functions give her all the enables her the functions of the mind, and it has her mind. So the mind is studied with the help of a discipline called psychology. So when we are plotting x in this graph, which we had done previously, we have the mind. We can call the head as the psycho part of it, because logy means study of the psycho is psychology, and the body is also called soma. Remember germ cells and somatic cells? So together the mind and the body, we had done it, and this is the body. This makes this an, or any ego for that matter, a psychosomatic being. So what we realize is that every individual sender who initiates the process has a mind and a body. So is every sender thereby becomes a psychosomatic being. When the sender feels the need, the sender feels the need as a psychosomatic being. So supposing sender feels a need to ask, this need is for water. This water could be a psychological need or it could be a somatic need. So we now have the other type: simple, complex, internal, external, personal, professional, and also psychological or a somatic need. So the sender as a psychosomatic being also has another very critical aspect to him or her. So here we have the PS factor, the psychosomatic factor, where you have the psycho part is the mind, and this is the S factor. So together we have the psychosomatic. Now this psychosomatic being that the ego is, this is a sender, ego also is a social being, right? That means every individual who's a psychosomatic being has a social affiliation. Has a social affiliation. What does affiliation means? We are aligned to a particular society or community. Now you may ask, why is it so? The answer goes back to an obvious fact that why is it across the globe in every country and community, why is it that weddings play an important role? Marriage and wedding, why is it important across the globe in every country and community? This is because a marriage or a wedding is not a contract between two individuals. It means the country, the community, the society is witnessing the union of two individuals into a relationship, so that the child born of the relationship becomes part of that community, part of that society, and part of that nation. And this is our social affiliation. That is why every individual across the world is a psychosomatic social being, because we are all born into a family, the family of our parents who come together, get married and create a family, and this family is part of a society, and every society is naturally part of a nation. The way this is our social structure. So every individual is a psychosomatic social being. Now what happens? So you see that Communication, which is a two-way process, so there is an X who has a message for Y, and Y gives a feedback. So if you plot X and you plot, because Y is again a human being, what do you get to see? You get to see the same things. Psycho, this is somatic, this is social, this is social, this is psychosomatic social beings. So X and Y, the sender X and the receiver Y, they are both psychosomatic social beings. Therefore, we can conclude that communication is essentially a psychosomatic social process. Right? So communication is a psychosomatic social process. This is one fundamental definition of communication, which has three parts. Psycho will be the mind of the individual, somatic, the body of the individual, and the social or the cultural aspect of the ego. So ego's mind, ego's body, and ego's culture and society affects communication, and communication thus becomes the psychosomatic social. Now this is true for both Y as well as X, because they are interacting. X may use a color, and here what you must realize is the 7% message and the 93%. The 93% non-verbal communication can be understood here. If they belong to different cultures, if the mindsets are different, they may not agree to the same signs and symbols and words. The word fire could have a scientific meaning, specific ignition, specific qualities that the scientist may define fire to be. But why, as a poet, fire could mean motivation, fire could mean inspiration. He may be using fire in the sense of inspiration, and why? Because his mind is that of a scientist, could understand fire as a physical quality, and they may not agree to the message. So communication is essentially a psychosomatic social process. Thank you. I hope you liked this video as well. Thank you so much.